Airing on Asheville FM 103.3 LPFM in Asheville, this is The Final Straw Radio, a weekly anarchist and anti-authoritarian broadcasts and podcast emanating out of occupied Chalagi land in southern Appalachia. We bring you voices and perspectives from projects and struggles all around the world, and you can find our archives, transcripts, ways to follow us and support us at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org. This week, we're sharing a recent interview with anarchist prisoner Malik Muhammad. Malik is 3 years into a 10-year concurrent federal and Oregon sentence for alleged use of molotov cocktails during the 2020 uprising and is currently incarcerated at the Snake River Detention Facility in solitary confinement. We speak about Malik's politicization, their case, realities, and organizing in the Oregon prison system, keeping connections with the outside, Malik's writing, and inspiration. You can find more about their case and some of their writings at malikspeaks.noblogs.org, and you can find their supports Mastodon at collectiva.social/@malikspeaks. You can write Malik via Malik Muhammad, number 239-35744, Snake River Correctional Institution, 777 Stanton Boulevard, Ontario, Oregon, 97914-8335, linked in the show notes.
All right, my name is Malik Muhammad. I am a queer, pan, and demi, non-binary. I prefer they, them, at least right now, though because of the masculine everything about me, I know that a lot of people don't, or, they just use he, him, so it doesn't really matter, but I prefer they, them pronouns. And, I'm 29, or 28, but my birthday is in February, which means, I'm basically 29, which means, I'm basically 30. I'm an anti-fascist anarchist, a revolutionary, a writer of everything creative, poetry, music, drawing. I'm a musician. I love to play guitar, and I love to sing. And,
That's great. So you're basically 29, which means you're basically 30. So you're basically retired, right?
I'm basically retired.
Okay. Happy upcoming birthday.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a bit about your upbringing and how you became politicized?
Oh, all right. So I was born in Joliet, Illinois, and moved and lived pretty much all around Chicago as a kid. We were raised strictly Muslim. My father was a very mean individual. He left us very young, and we were poor. I guess how I became politicized, I'd say I discovered anarchy on Tumblr. I was a Tumblr kid, but I think my earliest form of actual activism was a walkout of my high school that I helped organize after Trayvon Martin's murder. And then not too long after that, I had my own, one of many, but my own closest, deadliest run-in with the Bolingbrook Police Department, and almost got killed by three police officers fighting them. And so, I think that growing up poor and, being pretty much ostracized from a lot of my community, being Muslim, being black, being poor. I mean, even my classes, even from elementary school, it was a fight with all of my teachers because we moved literally every year. I was in a new school, and I would get into fights with every new teacher about me not saying the Pledge of Allegiance because we don't say the Pledge of Allegiance, and it kind of reinforced in me this defiant mentality. So it was something that I expected every year. I was going to get into a fight with the teacher every year. They were going to lose the fight because I wasn't gonna say the Pledge of Allegiance, but they'd be really mad at me, especially because a lot of my teachers were veterans, and a lot of them despised, because there was a lot of Islamophobia at that time. So yeah, I think that's pretty much at least where my radicalism came from.
Yeah, it's really funny that just in conversations over the last couple of months I've had with a few folks about their political backgrounds, where they're sharing something that's just like that, where you start becoming an anarchist or critiquing what is being presented to you or what rules to follow or whatever. And the Pledge of Allegiance is really, really a common pivot point for that. Yeah, I remember being in third or fourth grade maybe and asking but why? Why am I saying this? why am I including God in this? I don't know if I believe in God, and getting in trouble for it. And yeah, basically some of my friends getting forced to stand for it, or, but don't have to say it. I don't think that they made me, if I recall, actually stand up for it. I just couldn't say anything else during the pledge. Yeah, could you tell us a bit about the time when you had those interactions with the police where you nearly died, which you mentioned? About how old were you, and what was your political development like in that time up till the uprisings in 2020?
So I was a freshman in high school at that time. Yeah, it wasn't too long before I dropped out. But yeah, I believe I was a freshman at that time, and then I guess my political development up until then, I tried really, really hard to be a normie, unfortunately, and that's why I went the route of enlisting in the military, and like it was because like my family were like, oh, you're finally doing something with your life, but everything that I was doing and living was counter to how I felt and believed. But I had at the time I was married, I had a kid, and I was like, this is the best route I can go to I guess take care of them. And so I guess my political beliefs kind of took a back burner, though. Even when I was in the military, there was a considerable amount of time where my higher ups all thought I was a conscientious objector because of my obstinance to a lot of their rules and orders and regulations. So, and then after I got out, my next semi big thing was a burning your bus protest I helped organize, and then I got really active in organizing in 2020.
Were you in Indiana or Illinois or Oregon at this point?
So I started in Indiana. At the time, me and my second wife, we were living on 6 acres practicing self-sufficiency because I wanted to start a commune. And like that was my idea of like how I can quote unquote rescue people from capitalism. I really wanted to start a commune, but I grew up in a city and like I had no idea what country living was like, and so this was my attempt. And I believe it was a week or so before George Floyd was murdered, yeah. And a kid named Drayshawn Reed in Indianapolis was shot dead by some pigs. And I was already irate about it. And then I saw the video of George Floyd, and, I heard the I Can't Breathe Again. And I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, yeah, no, I would absolutely never let this happen again. And I was literally hearing it again, and it was so visceral because I was like, that was a situation I was in, being choked to death and beat by pigs, and I was like, oh my God, and I knew that I needed to do something, and I wanted to go out to Minneapolis, and I had a few friends who also were ex-veterans who got out and were out there organizing and doing some in Minneapolis, and they were like, bro, the best thing you can do to help us is like organize your city and keep organizing cities. And I was like, all right, cool. And so that's what I did. And anyway, in Indianapolis, I helped organize like one of the largest protests that they had there, and like most, it turned pretty bad. I also did some organizing in Louisville. I spent some time in Chicago, and then I came out to Portland. And I came out here because I had some people out here, and it was an amazing immersive experience. Most of my time was spent helping organize and on the shield walls. And then, towards the end of 2020 is when the alleged incidents that I was arrested and charged for transpired, and yeah.
Can you talk about what you were alleged to have done and what you were convicted of and what sort of sentence you received?
Yeah, okay. So it was alleged that on a couple occasions I manufactured molotovs and threw them at lines of riot pigs, and a few of them caught on fire, and I was convicted for, I believe it was like 4, or maybe it was 6. Oh, no, I think it was 4 counts of attempted murder and 2 aggravated attempted murder, and then I mean, it was like 20 riot charges and criminal mischiefs, and then they also, because my case was really politicized, they dual charged me in the feds as well. They charged me with civil disobedience and unlawful manufacture of a destructive device and unlawful use of a destructive device. And the way they phrase it is so funny. Like, I didn't register my molotov cocktails with the federal government and the ATF, and I'm like, oh, my bad. So they dual charged me, and it's interesting because the federal prosecutor told both my lawyers that the feds didn't want my case. They wanted to leave it in the state, but they decided to pick up the case because of being urged by, Biden's attorney general, because around the time that they charged me is when the January 6th riots happened. And so the exact expression from him was that they wanted to appear as hard on left-wing extremists as they were on right-wing extremists. And so that's why I got charged twice and had to plead guilty to both. And I got a 10-year concurrent sentence, 10 years in the feds, 10 years in the state. And it's interesting because now all those January 6 rioters are free.
Yeah, I've heard that talked about what the Biden administration did with so many people in 2020. Like, there's this anti-fascist in upstate New York, Alex Stokes, and he was seeing people getting attacked in Buffalo on the January 6th protest there that he was participating in the counter demo to. And he used a knife to defend himself and a couple of people. It didn't cause deadly damage to the people. It did stop them from attacking. There was 2 right-wing paramedics who were Proud Boys. And they went to the hospital. They had to go through physical therapy, but they were back at work within a couple of weeks or months. But he got 20 years for that. And it seemed like the federal government was showing that it could go just as hard against leftists as they do against Enrique Tarrio or whatever. So 10 years in the Fed followed by 10 years in state, or they're running, you said they were same time, concurrent, right?
They're running at the same time. Yeah. They ran the sentence concurrent, thankfully, because that'd be pretty,
And so you've been in federal facilities. Are they just ping-ponging you back and forth between federal and state facilities, or have you been in both?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when I was initially fighting my case is when I was in the federal facilities, and that's when they were doing the quote unquote typical diesel therapy and shuffling me back and forth between federal but because my Fed time, because you do 85% of your time in the feds. And in the state, because Oregon has mandatory minimums, and so it's day for day time, which is insane. So because the feds do 85% of your time, my Fed time runs out before my state time. So in my deal, I worked out that I just do all my time in the state, so I don't have to go from the feds to the state.
Have you found conditions in the Oregon prison system and the federal BOP? Like, what are facilities like? What's the treatment by guards like? Is there a lot of Nazi gangs? What's it been like?
Well, in Oregon's DOC, there are a lot more white gangs, whereas in the feds, there's pretty much Aryan Brotherhood, and that's pretty much they don't allow other white gangs in the feds. I think AOB is like one of the few white boy gangs that are allowed to be in the feds, because what they do, like, for white gangs, like, when you get there is, like, I mean, like, Aryan Brotherhood, like, they explicitly tell you, like, you have to either, renounce that or, there's, repercussions, which is why it's always also hard for, like, white people who go to the feds to be independent, because if you're white, you run on white politics unless you're a gang member, like a Blood or, which is, I don't know, that's a whole, this prison politics, but yeah, there's in Oregon's DOC, there's a lot more like white gangs. You have like ICS and Westside G and IIP, and there's like a million, and they mean it's insane. But I mean, and it also stems from Portland's Oregon's just vast racist history, all the way back to like East Side white pride, but and they're neo-Nazi skinhead cliques. But as far as like the pigs, they're the same. A pig is a pig is a pig. I would say that in Oregon's DOC they have a lot less respect. I don't know. There's just general complacency amongst Oregon's prisoners that I've found is much different than the feds. You know, when in the feds a hunger strike or a riot, these were things that we were doing, you know, and it was like, you know, it was a hard line that we were pushing, and like in Oregon's DOC it's really passive, and it seems to be really hard to get prisoners to organize as opposed to in the feds. But in general, I would also say that the feds have newer facilities because they do outside of compared to Oregon's. Because I spent my first 5 years at OSP, which is Oregon's oldest prison, and I mean it's so run down and dilapidated. They pay exuberant fines every year because all of the cells, they're one-man cells that they stick two people in. And so instead of increasing the cell count to make more cells, they just keep paying like millions of dollars in fines every year. And there's no AC, and the cells are like sheet metal. So it's like when you're in there in the summer, I mean, it's like you're in an oven, and they took the fans away. They won't allow you to buy fans anymore. And so like you're just sweltering. It's horrible. There's no AC. It's miserable. The facilities are terrible. The food, it's prison shitty food. But my biggest qualms is like their religious discrimination when it comes to Muslims and like our Eid meals and our fasting for Ramadan. Like they explicitly go out of their way to it seems it is they go out of their way to make us miserable because during Ramadan you fast. And they bring us, sack lunches after the sun goes down, and like sometimes you'll get just some bread. Sometimes you'll get bread and an egg and like an apple, and it's not even like the necessary requisite calories per day, which is entirely different than the feds. In the feds you get your Eid meal, you get actual, food, and they're just, like I said, the pigs in Oregon's DOC are just incredibly, immensely disrespectful, more so than the feds. But like I said, I think it has to do with the complacency of the general inmates.
So you mentioned that organizing behind bars in Oregon prisons is very difficult. Can you talk about your experience with it? Oh, well, I guess it was FCI Sheridan, so it was a federal facility that you had participated in. But I wondered how interested prisoners are in making common demands when lines are drawn by sets or by cars or whatever. And when those lines get crossed for common action?
So yeah, like you said, at Sheridan it was, it was a common push, and like I said, that's something that seems to, be lacking. Here, I don't know, it seems like the desire to improve the conditions is almost non-existent. I mean, even when it comes to like outside, like actual lawyers and groups like the DRO, like coming to ask questions about the conditions that people are suffering, people are hesitant to even talk to them or explain like what it is that they're going through. And I think a huge portion of it comes from specifically the white car and because they enjoy more privilege under, the oppression. And it's apparent. And it's not something that they seek to give up. I think it's like the real prisoner's dilemma that, whites who enjoy more privilege under the oppression just refuse to relinquish their privilege. Like, for example, it's a dual-fold thing. That I feel like is a major impediment. Like, allegedly there was a strike that was being organized by somebody in a different unit, and it was because all of the blacks in this unit and the Serenos and the Paises were not getting tablets. Only the white dudes were being given tablets. Even when we would sign up, we just weren't getting them. And when it was pointed out that the reason that the white boys don't want to do this strike with us is because they are the only ones getting the tablet, and so this doesn't with them. That seemed to be the only thing that spurred them to be like, oh no, I'm not no cop lover or whatever, and then they seemed to then want to get on board. But up until you explicitly called them out for them enjoying their privilege, that they're not on board for even I was having a conversation with one of these other, well, he was an independent white dude. I don't usually with any white gang members, but this independent white dude was talking to me, and I was trying to get him to, fill out this paperwork for an organization that was looking into, whole issues, and he's like, I don't know if I want to go into everything. And I was like, why not? And he's like, well, because you see those TVs on the wall? Because in IMU, there's 4 TVs on the wall that are pointed to the cells that people can tune into on their radios. And he's like, those TVs, they're a privilege. They don't have to do this. And I was like, bro, those TVs. I was like, bro, what do you mean they don't have to? This is like less than the bare minimum, bro. Like, who gives a about these TVs? And so, on the one hand, there's been that issue, the whites who refuse to, relinquish any of their privilege, and then there's, on the other hand, the alleged situation that I'm in the hole for right now, organizing a strike on Mainline, where the Oregon prisoners' mentality seems to be so browbeaten that, like, even the slightest, like, improvement to conditions just seems impossible. Like asking for, like, shorts. Being able to just wear your shorts instead of, pants and everything, it was like, well, why would they let us do that? And I'm just like, well, why not? Like, what? And then there was one dude who was like, when I told him, like, yo, you should, ask for streaming services, or, if that's what you want. And he's like, I don't know if they do. I was like, why not? Just shoot for the moon, man. Like, who cares? And then, like, he came back to me later, and he was like, if they gave us streaming services, I'd never leave my cell. And I was like, you're missing the point. You're missing the point of collective action. This is the allotments and the trinkets aren't what we're doing this for. And it seems like the petty allotments and treatment and trinkets that people have now, they're just so clung to that they don't want to relinquish it. And, it's the same thing as, like, on the streets, because, the streets is just the macro, the micro that is prison. Everybody has their allotments and their trinkets and their pastimes and their distractions that get them through the day, and we have the same things here, and, like, some people are just more acutely aware of it and don't give a as opposed to others. It just seems really, really, really bad in Oregon's prison where they just don't want to, I don't know, I think the huge portion of it is the fact that they can put you in the hole for so long, And I think it does wear on people. I spent all of last year in the hole, and right now it's 8 months this year, and I won't be getting out till October, so that's 10 months, and it does get wearing, but I don't know, for just reason, just cause, like, I don't know, it's worth it. But yeah, I think the exuberant whole times that they put people in is, so some people like, some people have been in this long term for like 10 years, and it's just, this same bullshit that Cali faced before with their indeterminate seg sentences, I think that's one of the biggest scares.
Like the ones that led to the massive cross-organization hunger strikes and such. When those things, that spread into Canada and up into other parts of the U.S., right?
Yeah, it was a massive movement. And Cali is so good with that, with their organizing, with their militancy. It is, and I think a lot of it is attributed to George Jackson, and I will say that not just because it is Black August, but because, I think a lot of it is attributed to George Jackson. And, their militancy is something else. And, cause, when they strike, it's not just one facility, it's every facility is going. And like, there's 2 dudes here on this main line who allegedly may have, been trying to organize this with me. And they're from Cali, and they were in those strikes. And they said that the pigs were coming around with bags of McDonald's to people's cells, like dangling in front of them. And people would take those bags and throw them off the tier, like, and like that's the mentality that you're supposed to have. But, here, these people would eat the McDonald's.
That's torture just smelling it. I guess I didn't ask a question about this, but since you bring it up, can you talk about your Black August practice? Maybe tell the audience who don't know about what Black August is, the heritage of it, and how it's practiced in Oregon prisons and how you observe it yourself.
So Black August is in remembrance of, George Jackson. I say also in remembrance of Jonathan Jackson because he was equally as radical and I love him dearly. And he and his brother left, imprints on society. So every Black August, and yeah, it is observed, at least at OSP. When I came to Snake River, I didn't realize nobody knew what Black August was. They don't observe it here, but every Black August for all 31 days, you're supposed to get together in groups with the Blacks and work out. We do 100 of something, of some reps every day. Most of the time, it's burpees. You get in like as many groups as the pigs will allow you to before they make you break up. And you do your 100 burpees, and it's about being physically and mentally fit for preparedness for physical conflict with the pigs, but also with white racist gangs, because during his time in the California penal system, when George Jackson was sentenced to an indeterminate sentence, 1 year to life, for like an $80, petty robbery charge. The guards were putting glass shards and in our food. They were chaining us to tables and letting white supremacists stab us and everything, and because the black car was not an actual black car at that time in California, because there's a lot of infighting and everything, and obviously there's just so much systemic racism that it seemed insurmountable. But George Jackson brought that militancy, that steadfastness that was like, okay, I don't care. Like we whatever neighborhood you are from as a Crip, you are a Crip and you're Black. Whatever neighborhood you are from as a Blood, you are Blood and you are Black. And that's how UBN, United Blood Nation started. And anyway, the Blacks became a black car and very militant, and they were ready to, and they stood ready to, and did actually fight against the pigs and white racist, white supremacist groups. And after his murder and assassination by the state, it just became a thing. Every August for all 31 days, we work out together, because there's always this Stokes division between us. And so, like, there's that 1 month that we come together. Personally, it's annoying to me that it's just 1 month. But at OSP, every month, we would get together. I probably did thousands of burpees, because I would go from group to group, because what it's also about is solidarity. It's not just about being physically fit, but the way that my friend used to say it is, it's not about what you can do, but about what we can do together. Like, yeah, I can do 200 burpees myself, but this brother over here may not, he may struggle, he may need encouragement. So, like, I'll do 100 burpees with this group, do 100 burpees with this group, do 100 burpees with this brother who was doing something else, and, now he's by himself, it is, or a mile run, just 100 or something to stay physically fit and mentally fit and show solidarity. And at the end, at least at OSP, at the end we do a big spread together. Like, we make a whole bunch of food together, and like we try to preach unity, and we always say, it shouldn't be Black August just 1 month, it should be Black August every day of the year, like we should all be unified. But like I said, there's this caliber of this mentality, in Oregon's prisons, and so it becomes like, I don't know, in one ear out the other, and people kind of just let it go after Black August is over. Yeah,
that's hard. But you do have a whole system that, it's like people getting paid studying how to divide communities and how to oppress,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think if there was more of an in-your-face existential threat, because the pigs are in your face with their racism, and they are in your face with their violence and their heinousness. But it seems like, I don't know. I think that It Did Happen Now podcast commented on it before, that Portland's racism was just kind of just accepted for a while. And for some reason, I don't know, it's just, I guess, like, trauma transfers. So it's like, people just accept, like, okay, yeah, these pigs are going to be racist. They're going to be violent towards me. Who cares? And it's like, well, you should care, but I don't know. I think maybe if it was blatant in your face, like the 60s, where you're getting glass shards in our food, people would want to do something else.
So I read that you're a parent. Can you speak a little bit about sustaining relationships during your incarceration, maybe some lessons that you've learned about it, from what must have been a very difficult road so far? And have you been able to lean on the experience of other people that are imprisoned with you?
So, yeah, it is a difficult road, a difficult thing to do. My son He actually turns 10 next month on the 17th, and I'm going to miss another birthday. And it's been hard. He is used to me being gone because of the military, but I don't know, maybe this is something different because his mother is in a bad situation with her boyfriend. And I don't know, it's just it's just different. And I can tell. When I talk to him though, he's as loving and resolute as I am. Like last year when I was in the hole for the entire year and I hadn't talked to him for so long, when I finally got him on the phone, I did so much apologizing and like I was in tears, and he was like, it's okay, Dad. He's like, I understand. And like I know he doesn't understand, because he doesn't. But like, or maybe he does. He is a smart kid. But I don't know. It's the lovingly way that he just accepted. Because I always tell him like as a man, you have to stand on your own 10. And so, like, even when I told him, and apologized, I told him, like, I had to do what I had to do. And he was like, I get it. And maybe he does, because, he's smart. But a lot of what people have told me in here is just don't stop trying. And there have been times where I have wanted to stop, because I'm just like, maybe he is probably better off not being up by me, and so maybe, and so a lot of me has been like, all right, I'll just leave it alone. But all of the older heads who, also have kids or who have constantly been in and out, they're just like, don't stop trying. And so like, and also when his mother doesn't let me talk to him, which isn't her, it's her boyfriend, they're like, write, and just keep writing and don't stop writing. Even if he doesn't get it, you can save it for him, and so he'll know that you were thinking about him. And that's why I write a lot of poetry about him and stuff, and I post it on the blog. And I write in my journal about him every day. I write songs and poetry about him, so I can show him, like, yeah, there's never been a day that I didn't, think about you. Like, trust me. Because there doesn't. His pictures are on my wall right now from his last birthday that I missed. And it certainly, it steadies me and helps me get me through the time. It's certainly hard maintaining any sort of interpersonal relationships, especially doing so much. But one of the things that I have found reigns true is that the people who are supposed to be there, so the people who know, the people who understand are going to be there, and I have some amazing people in my life, and so, and they also help me maintain my contact with my son, and so, yeah.
Because you mentioned it in your blog, a number of pieces that you've written that have been published alongside updates on your situation at malikspeaks.noblogs.org. There I found a series called Sexstitutionalization. That's a really hard, very long word. Can you talk about sexstitutionalization and why you are using your access to folks on the outside to interview fellow prisoners, and kind of like what experiences that you've had with this project?
Yeah, so I started that when I first got to prison because I had met a whole bunch of dudes who had done a whole lot of the whole time, and they were just in and out of the hole. And some of them were over it, and like now they were to the point where they were like working within the administration, and these were the older heads who like were trying to steer me away from doing, nonsensical stuff, or what they considered nonsensical stuff, because they considered working within the administration to be a better route, because they had done years of, fighting and, other shit. And I was like, and I started to buy into it. And so, but because of, my nature, I wanted to figure out some way to do something. And there was a class I was taking that was, I think it was on recidivism, or I don't remember. It was on something. And there was a dude in the class who was talking about, and he'd been in prison for like 20 some odd years, and he was about to get out, and he had been done the whole time in and out. And he was talking about how he's always prepared to go to the hole. And like he pulled out, this wad of envelopes, his address books, pens. He's like, yeah, dude, I'm always ready to go to the hole because I'm probably going to go. He's like, it's kind of just like knowing that when I get out, I'm probably going to come back to prison. And I was like, so it's like a form of institutionalization. And he's like, yeah, except seg. And then we came up with the word institutionalization. And he was actually the first to do that interview, Andy. And I was like, can I ask you? Was curious. And then I was like, well, maybe I should like tell people, because people talk about institutionalization. So, maybe people would want to learn about and talk about, the form of institutionalization that you get inside of prison. Because, the whole is like it's so viscerally like going to prison again. Like, so viscerally like getting up, because you get rearrested, you get handcuffed, you get beat up, you get taken, and you get secluded, you have nothing, you have no contact. It's literally like getting arrested all over again. It's literally like going to prison all over again. And like, it's a whole process. And, so there becomes this mentality. And so everybody that I interviewed, it kept coming up that they were always prepared. And like now, I'm the same way. I always walk around with at least 5 or 6 envelopes, because you won't have contact when you first get in. So you want to be able to mail people and be like, hey, I'm in the hole, and so I walk around with my address book too, because you don't remember everybody's address and phone numbers. So, you keep your address books, you keep envelopes, you keep pens. You make sure people know, like, hey, probably going to go back, or not that I'm planning to, but it's possible, It's just a ridiculous sense of recidivism. And I don't know, I felt like at that time I was like, maybe this is a way that I can be active and expose, because I really wanted to expose Oregon's whole abusive whole times. That was my biggest thing, and it still is. Like, that's what I wanted to expose, and I want to change, because like it's crazy. And don't get me wrong, like, a lot of states have crazy whole times, but a lot of states are cutting it down. Of course, they find ways around it, but even, California, they've cut their whole time down to 10 days, 10 days is like their max in the hole, and so it's possible, and I know it's possible, because even the Oregon Youth Association, the juvie for Oregon doesn't do, whole time anymore at all. And so it's just Oregon's DOC that hasn't caught up, because this is just what they do. And so I felt like, using my blog to like post stuff like that could get people to like write people and talk to them about their situations, and also, my form of activism at the time. But then I was just like, eventually I was like, I'm going all full throttle again, and that's when, all the all the other started.
Yeah, it's kind of like for the folks that are on the outside, maybe we'll end up in prison, or maybe just need to have a better understanding. It seems like at the same time as you were using this opportunity to learn about people's situations and also creating an archive to help other people understand and hear these stories, which, I don't know, as someone who does a media project, I think that's pretty important. But yeah, it's a really cool project.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know, I guess maybe it's I don't know. I think it's just my militancy. I have like I don't know. I feel like if I'm not doing all that I can, like my mentality has always been like, what's the point of giving if you're not giving your all, And so it's like, I am able-bodied. I can do all of these things, and it's actually my friend Chris, who, or my sibling Chris, who does a whole lot for me. I love him dearly. And he was the one who was telling me, like, man, like, you can, like, attack this in a different way, like, or not necessarily but like, I don't know, he explained a different way that I can't go into right now, but like, but I'm like, oh, that actually, and he's like, that's still, being active, and that's still being, and it's not like compromising yourself. And so, yeah, it is important. I didn't realize how important it was at the time. And so, I kind of just went back to like, no, like, I'm willing to fight these pigs. Like, I'm willing to go on hunger strikes. So like,
Okay. Yeah, I see. I mean, so you mentioned somebody who had spent like a decade in the hole, and how people have been able to push back in other states to limit the amount of segregation time, or there have been successful prisoner and inside and outside solidarity movements to get that. Can you talk about what gets you sent to the hole in the Oregon system? What sort of recourse do you have as someone who gets sent there? How can you challenge, and how long can they stick you in there?
All right. So in Oregon, you can pretty much anything can get you taken to the hole, and I mean, and it's, I mean, they can. You can be swept up under quote unquote investigation and be in the hole for up to 180 days without even a charge. Like when I got swept up this time, I was under investigation without a charge. And they don't tell you, but that's how you know. When you don't have a DR, you know you're under investigation. And if they just swooped you up and cuffed you and took you to the box, but it can be anything. Their rules and regulations are so lax when it comes to what they can do and like how long they can be in here. Just recently, or not recently, I'd say like maybe 5 years ago, they changed the whole time from 180-day max to 90 days, which isn't that drastic at all, especially when you think about the fact that so you can get taken to the hole and you can get maxed out at 90 days for your segregation sentence. And then they can do what's called a P5, which pending category 5, which is your custody level, which means you can't be on a main line, which means they're considering you for IMU. So you can be in pending 5 status for up to another 180 days before they then hard 5 you and then actually send you to IMU for what is a minimum of 180 days. So yeah, their system is so and they find so many different ways around it. Like investigations can keep you in the hole for 180 days, like I said, without even a charge. And then even when you're in IMU, that 180-day minimum can go up to 36 months and indefinite if they just quote unquote don't know what to do with you. All they have to do is reconvene once a month and say that we're still trying to figure out what to do with you. In the meantime, you're going to just still be sitting in the hole, And so yeah, people sit for years, The norteños, they do that to them all the time, the worst. They keep them in the hole for years for no reason. And because there's no like public outcry about it and there's no also unity inside against it, they are able to get away with it. And then they can do things like if they know who you are, they know who your enemy is, they can let you out of the hole if they feel they have no other way to deal with you, let you out of the hole in a spot where they know that you're going to get into a fight, just so that you come back to the hole and they can restart their time all over again. There was a kid who just recently killed himself last year at OSCI because he was in the hole for 230 some odd days under investigation, and he got let out. He was out for a month, and they took him right back under investigation again, and he begged them not to take him back. He said, if you take me back, I'm going to kill myself, and he sure enough killed himself because they didn't care. And that's just one of a string of suicides that have happened at OSP and OSCI because of these ridiculous long hole times. And then to boot, the way that they can treat you in the hole, like when it comes to, their cell extraction teams, their CERT teams, their crisis response teams, they come in masked up, steel-toe boots, and they beat the out of you. Like that's what they do. When they take you to the hole, at least at these Two Rivers and FRCI where I'm at, there's no camera in the change-out room where they take you, and they can, if you piss them off enough, they'll take you right there where you're off camera, and they'll beat the shit out of you there before they take you to the hole. And then you go to the infirmary, and because you're going to IMU, this entire time, you don't have any contact with anybody. So by the time you are, healed up and you can talk to anybody, all of the quote-unquote evidence has gone, and they can get away with whatever they want, Just recently, it came out in the Oregonian that, there was a string of COs that were sharing around, racist, like COs photoshopping their faces on top of a dude's body kneeling on George Floyd's neck. These are the kind of people that we're dealing with. And those are the people, those dudes who came out in the Oregon, those dudes were on the CERT team. These people, they live to beat the shit out of people. The way that William Parker in the 60s recruited pigs from the Jim Crow South to go to L.A. to be part of his police force because the white Southerners, so-called, knew how to handle black folk. That's what they do. That's the people that they put on the CERT team and in the hole, people that they quote-unquote know how to handle black folk. And, it's a pervasive system.
When mentioning William Parker, I just looked him up real quick. Did you catch that person's story out of a book, or was it an article? Geo Mayer's A World Without Puppies. I love his book. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I've never actually cracked it because I like read Christian Williams' book a few years earlier, and I guess I didn't have another reason to read another book on cops, I thought. But I should definitely check it out.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good one. They stopped letting it in here. I was the last person who got one of these cops in here. Yeah.
So one of the things that I've heard people talk about in Indiana and in the Ohio prison system, and I just kind of imagine that this is ubiquitous, is that people get stuck into, because of the lack of health care, let alone mental health care, these prisons use solitary as a punishment / treatment, quote unquote, for people having mental health crises or acting out in ways that the administration would consider to be problematic behavior or unmanageable. Is that a thing that you find frequently? Yeah. What sparked me wondering that was you talking about the person who said that they were going to kill themselves if they got sent there?
Yeah. They do that. And even if you come to the hole without a mental health problem, it's not possible for you to leave without some serious mental health issues. That kid particularly, I didn't know him personally, but the people I know that knew him said that he was perfectly fine before his 200 some odd days in the hole under investigation. That's why the DRO, the Disabilities Rights Group of Oregon, has a mandate that anybody with mental health conditions cannot be in the hole over 30 days. But the Oregon Department of Corrections still disobeys that because they, like I said, they find workarounds. They have this one workaround called MDT time, which is multidisciplinary treatment team, where once again you're just in limbo waiting for them to figure out what to do with you. And what they say in that MDT time is that you're technically not in the hole. They can technically house you wherever. So they're supposed to like put you on mainline or something like that until they decide what to do with you. But they just end up leaving you in the hole anyway. And then on top of that, they still have, where I'm at is IMU, in Intensive Management Unit. But they have BHU, which is Behavioral Health Unit. They have ICH, which is Intensive Care Housing. And then they have MHI. I don't know what that is. But these are all, again, this is the hole. It's the shoe by a different 3-letter name. but that's how they justify it to the state's, watchdogs, is like, hey, no, these people with mental health issues are not in the hole. They're in BHU, but it's the hole. It's the same thing. And those are almost worse because those also have no time limit. It's indeterminate. You're there until they decide that you can leave.
Yeah, and I'm sure these sorts of circumstances and this sort of oversight are not going to be improving anytime soon without massive social upheaval and pressure from the outside. So it's important, I think, for what you're saying and your criticism and your experience to be getting into more ears.
Because, yeah, like you said, if the public just keeps thinking that it's not happening, nothing's going to happen, and even if we have movements on the inside, it's not going to be as strong unless we have the public, with us.
Yeah, and particularly with I don't know how widespread it actually is, right? It might be just like that I'm in a political bubble or whatever, but at least the term abolitionism still has, and prisoner issues still have some resonance, even if the high tide mark was a few years ago for that discourse. So if that's attacking, if what you're saying is or the message is attacking the statement that people, it's just bad people that are in places like this and they deserve what they're getting and it's not retributive. But when in actuality, or it's quote unquote helping people get back into society. If those two myths are on the way out, then just literally talking about what the conditions are and knowing that you or someone that you care about could easily be put in that position can be a pretty good motivator, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's one of the things I was telling my little brother. And I tell a lot of people this too, because, like I said, Oregon has mandatory minimums, so even if you're a first time offender, and, because my little brother had a DUI once, and I was telling him, I was like, if you got a DUI in Oregon, you accidentally hit somebody, bro, it wouldn't matter if the family came to the judge and said that they understood and they didn't want you to get a whole lot of time. You're going to prison for 10 years because it's mandatory minimums, People like it can happen to anybody. I think there was a movie on Netflix that came out a long time ago called The Shot Caller, which is a perfect example of how it, quote unquote, can happen to anybody.
Mm-hmm. A lot of this has been about sustaining good connections, that prison is basically there to isolate and break people, like break those connections. And so between the Black August celebrations / practice and people getting together and revisioning their relationships and eating food together and doing study and workouts, or like the blog project, I see these themes of keeping connections in spite of and actually as a means of resistance that could lead towards other forms of resistance, which I think is great. But there's also writings on your blog about current events, about stuff going on the outside that prison is meant to disconnect you from. I wonder, can you talk about staying involved in movement on the outside and maybe more about the work of people that are in your support crew?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I'm involved enough. I wish I was out. But my people, I call them siblings, because so like, comrade is like really tanky, and like brother and sister is like classic revolutionary, but like it assumes gender. So I call people sibling and then insert their name. But like my siblings, who I love dearly, they do a lot to keep me informed. Also NPR, I listen to it on a regular basis, because there is no news media that's not right wing that they put, and they do it on purpose. You know, inside these institutions, that's all that they want you to have access to is right wing media, because it helps browbeat people into this mentality that their circumstances are their own and like their treatment is okay. And so I listen to NPR, but the NPR gets in. So I listen to NPR, specifically OPB, and stay in touch with things. And you know, my support crew definitely tells me a lot of stuff that's going on.
Yeah, keeping up on media makes sense. I was wondering, like, if you want to speak any more about any specific things that are helping you, say, feel more connected to what's going on the outside, like up to date, and like you're having an impact with your ideas getting out there, you know?
Oh, yeah, I guess I don't feel like I'm making much of an impact, or that I mean, sometimes though, I mean, actually, I guess a lot. I do get a lot of letters, and people do tell me that they feel inspired by stuff that they read on my blog. So I guess maybe that is a thing, and maybe I don't count it enough as, because like in my head, I'm like, you know, I have like real deal trauma response training and emergency first aid training, and like with the Gazan genocide, I could literally be there and like actually be helping, you know, like, yeah. And so personally, I actually feel more handicapped and helpless than ever. And I feel, I don't know. Yeah, it's frustrating. But when I do get letters from people who tell me that they've been inspired, or some of my siblings on the streets who do message me, and I call them, and like they tell me that they're inspired by what they read on my blog and like my steadfastness, I guess it does give me some relief, and I don't know. So I definitely feel involved then. And then, I mean, I do put some of my ideas, and actually, so I guess some people do go with a lot of my ideas, because you know, I had felt like at this point, you know, with mass deportations and these ICE roundups, that with the large amount of normies actually like in being upset, I felt like getting them in, this would be the route to getting them engaged in like real sustained prisoner solidarity, and like getting them used to putting money on people's books and sending care packages and getting them familiar with their prison and their jail systems and stuff like that. Because, you know, once they're rounded up, they are isolated and they have no way to connect their people. Anyway, I've talked to a couple of groups that actually are doing stuff like this, and so like that makes you feel good. But yeah, for the most part, I feel helpless and disconnected, and sometimes I'm like, what else can I do besides write poetry about it or write a song? And like, I mean, when I'm in here, you know, I try to talk current events with people. They're not in this hole, because in this hole I'm just surrounded by, there's nothing but white supremacists on my tears. I can't have any intelligible conversation with these individuals, but I try, you know, on main lines, you know, to to have in-depth conversations and get people to understand like the plight of the prisoner's plight is the plight of Gazim, of queers, of immigrants. Like, it's all intertwined, it's all interwoven, and there's, there's no extrapolating it. There's nothing happens in isolation or a vacuum, but it's so hard in here to build community. So I really do have to hold on to like the people that, my siblings who love and care about me. But yeah, I'm sorry if that doesn't answer your question, but for the most part, no, I feel pretty disconnected.
No, it totally answered it. And I like that. It's interesting to hear you sort of navigating that isolation, that feeling of powerlessness, and being, actually people are, having letter writings and discussing and reading stuff. Both those things can exist simultaneously, right? That's exactly what the state is doing, except for the part that we're doing. You had mentioned before that, just sort of like offhandedly, that you're working on a book. I don't know if you want to talk about that project.
Yeah, no, so actually it's two. But I've got a book of poetry that I wrote my last year that I was in the hole last year, and it's being transcribed to get to a publisher. The problem is my handwriting. It's horrible to read, and like literally my siblings are the only ones who can read my handwriting. So they're in groups right now transcribing my stuff to get published. But so there's that, and then this whole shot, I had two goals. I was like, I want to write a fiction novel. Actually, I wanted to write 4, and I've got one done and like 3 more in various stages of completion, and I wanted to teach myself to draw. And so I have taught myself to draw, which is pretty cool and like super rad. And yeah, I have this one novel done. I was inspired because of, Octavia Butler, and I was like, you know what, I got to write something. And it features a lot of radical. It features Eric King and Oso Blanco and Sean Swain and like all of my siblings and even my lawyer C-Law, who I love dearly. So I call it like revolutionary fiction, and it's about this. It's called Mr. Dars, and it's about this team of radical direct actionists who take radical direct actions against the state, and it's set in this dystopian future that we are probably headed for. And it's just us, resisting the state. And I don't know, it was really fun to write. And like my partner, Devin, who I love dearly, he has been going over and transcribing because he's also a writer. And so he's helping me like work out the kinks with it and everything. And I have this idea of like turning it into a graphic novel too, or like a comic book, since I've taught myself to draw. Yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned the dystopia that we're heading towards in a recent post on your blog entitled "The Here and Now and Trying." You talk about the ongoing slump deeper into fascism in this country. I know that there's a lot of scary, brutal, and terrible things happening right now. But I wonder what gives you hope? Like where you see breaks in the clouds, what keeps you struggling?
Oh, yeah. What gives me hope? My siblings. My siblings, and so I feel like hope is a revolutionary's responsibility and an anarchist's greatest weapon. And, it's the people, us, that gives me hope. And like I make a distinct distinction between we the people and us the people. We the people that the Constitution is written for, that this country has been built for, is not us the people. And I try to stay away from using the word we in general, but like us are the ones who give me hope. Whenever I get letters from like strangers all over, like who become dedicated in like not just talking to me, but like talking to other people and like engaging with me, and like I mean now like right now, because I'm on a tier with white supremacists and like I have nobody do Black August with me, I just on a whim had my partner make a post asking people to like, and I started asking some of my siblings, and like I didn't expect anybody to say yes, and everyone said yes, and like even to the point where like my sibling Lisa out in New York, she's got a whole spreadsheet, where people can like access it online and log their hours and what they're doing, and so that gives me hope because people are like really engaging more with the local prisoners and like and just being I don't know, it just shows that there is that solidarity, there is that strength there, and like I'm 6 hours away from anybody, and 3 people, and all of these people knew each other on Signal. They never met each other before a day in their life, before they hopped in a car and drove 6 hours and spent the night in the hotel to see me. And so this community and these networks that are being built like outside of Signal tracks and like in real person, like going to come from to do a trip up here with some other people. And so it's the people, it's us that gives me hope, because it definitely hurts, the isolation and everything that's going on, and it makes it hard to stay so steadfast and so hardcore. But I say that people think that I'm really, really brave, or but it's really the people. It's other people that I draw strength and bravery from, and hope. Yeah.
Well, Malik, thank you so much for having this conversation and reaching out. It's been a real pleasure, and we should definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And so, this has been awesome.
If you want to support The Final Straw Radio, you can subscribe to our podcast via various streaming platforms, follow, rate, and share our materials online, and learn more at tfsr.media. And if you'd like to fund our transcription work that allows for easier translation, more accessibility of content, and the zines that we produce for each interview, consider picking up some merch from us or making a one-time or recurring donation via PayPal, Stripe, Venmo, or LibrePay, or joining our Patreon to access early release content and other goodies via the links that you can find at tfsr.media/support. Finally, if you'd like to hear us on your local radio station, visit tfsr.media/radio to find more info or reach out to us for some help. Thanks for listening. And now some words from anarchist prisoner Sean Swain.
When Donald Trump ran for president in 2024, one of the major undercurrents of his campaign was that he would take on the deep state, drain the swamp, expose everything that the corrupt and powerful were hiding. This resonated particularly with the QAnon crowd, who believed that Jeffrey Epstein was a central fixture in the secret cabal of child-raping satanic Democrats, that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered in federal custody on the orders of the corrupt and powerful before he could expose them all. So Trump's repeated promises to declassify and release the Epstein files was part and parcel to his crusade to expose and take down the corrupt and powerful and make America great again. It all went together. He came into office and appointed the likes of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, both advocates for releasing the Epstein files. Since then, exactly 0 pages of previously unreleased material has seen the light of day. Instead of releasing thousands of pages of materials in their direct custody, they re-released what was already publicly available. Then they provably lied about the security footage at a detention facility where Jeffrey Epstein allegedly hung himself. Then they focused everyone's attention on the small fraction of documents relating to the Epstein's grand jury. The Trump administration has actively blocked the release of the very materials they promised to declassify on day one, concealing the documents not just from the public, but from Epstein's own accusers, the victims of his sex trafficking. So the question naturally arises, what is Trump hiding, and why? Let's deal first with what's not being hidden. In the 1990s, Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were the best of friends. That's been confirmed by dozens of photos and videos of the two of them together, by Epstein's own preserved statements, and by Epstein's brother, Mark, who has repeatedly confirmed the two of them were together constantly for a period of about a decade. Both Trump and Epstein had offices in New York City and had real estate holdings all around Palm Beach, Florida. Trump was then a registered Democrat, the party affiliation of those QAnon claims to be satanic molesters. Trump and Epstein were the best of friends, it seems, during the period of Epstein's most voracious sexual predation of underage girls. It was during this time, according to a casino manager named O'Donnell, who spoke out on TV news, that Trump and Epstein and 3 underage girls were drinking together at one of Trump's casinos in New Jersey at 1:30 in the morning. They were caught by officials of the Gambling Commission who let Trump off with a warning. According to the casino manager, the Gambling Commission officials knew the girls were underage because one of them was a well-known professional tennis player. Trump, underage girls, Jeffrey Epstein, alcohol, 1:30 in the morning. A former girlfriend of Epstein's also spoke out, recounting how Epstein took her to Trump's office, where Trump groped her in front of Epstein, while he maintained a matter-of-fact conversation with Epstein. This would also seem to establish a nexus between Trump, Epstein, and a routine of Epstein making women available to Trump, even Epstein's own girlfriend. Trump is now suing a newspaper that reported that Trump contributed to a book of messages to Epstein for Epstein's 50th birthday. Other contributors in that book, such as Bill Clinton and attorney Alan Dershowitz, do not challenge that their contributions are theirs. Only Trump claims the contribution attributed to him is a forgery. And that message attributed to Trump and written in Sharpie marker are the cryptic words about every day having its own secrets, with the drawing of a naked woman. Connecting those dots forms a pattern by themselves, but let's also consider what we know of Donald Trump. He was found liable for raping E. Jean Carroll. In his Access Hollywood interview, he described how being rich meant he could grab women by their genitals, the very kind of attitude you would think he would share with a close friend who literally treated girls as sexual commodities. And we know from the Stormy Daniels controversy that Trump pays for sex. In fact, in his first one-on-one with then FBI Director James Comey, Comey had to ask Trump about the video that Russian intelligence claimed to have obtained, video of Trump in a Russian hotel room forcing 2 young sex workers to urinate on each other. Trump denied ever being in Russia. Turns out he had been to Russia. So what we know without speculation is that Trump was very close to Epstein during Epstein's most predatory period. Trump paid for sex. Trump had been found liable for rape. Trump and Epstein drank with underage girls at Trump's casino at 1:30 in the morning. Trump groped women Epstein brought to him. And if the birthday book is believed, Trump wrote a sexually suggestive message about his and Epstein's secrets. So what don't we know? What's in the files about Epstein's clientele? And who might it be? What is it Trump doesn't want the world to know about his former best friend and the unnamed child rapists who associated with Epstein? Given what's already known, how much worse could it be for Donald Trump? Trump apologists say we don't even know that Trump is in the Epstein files. Yes, we do. Attorney General Pam Bondi informed Trump that he was in the files, and after she informed him, he lied and said she never told him. Then Pam Bondi assigned thousands of FBI agents to comb through the Epstein files looking for every single reference to Trump, seemingly in order to excise those references. And in addition to all of this, nothing has been released related to the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein's brother has confirmed that doctors conducting the autopsy told him personally that too many injuries were inconsistent with suicide. Trump and his cronies implied that Epstein was murdered and covered up as a suicide to stop Epstein from destroying corrupt, powerful people whose association with Epstein would destroy them. Point of fact, Epstein died in federal custody during Trump's first term. Trump was in power and running for re-election when his former best friend, a child sex trafficker, died in federal custody from what appears to be a fake suicide, a murder to protect corrupt people in power, and now Trump refuses to release anything. At any rate, you'll recall last week I started this whole discussion by saying I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I still don't. I don't think there's a conspiracy. I don't think anyone is hiding anything. Not really. The corrupt and powerful are operating in plain sight. The more they attempt to conceal, the more they actually reveal. And when someone reveals to you who they really are, don't argue with them. I don't think anyone needs to see the Epstein files. Those files would only confirm what we already know. As Leonard Cohen sang it, everybody knows. Everybody knows. This is anarchist prisoner Sean Swain from the Super Duper Uber Mega Ultra Hyper Turbo Multi Maxi Max in Youngstown, Ohio. If you're listening, you are the resistance.
You can still write Sean at his new old new again address at Sean Swain number A243205 OSP Youngstown 878 Coatesville Hubbard Road, Youngstown, Ohio 44505. You can find his past writings, updates on his case, hear his past audio, find out how to get his books, plus ways to contribute to his legal defense fund at seanswain.org.
This is The Final Straw Radio. The show will later be archived at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org, and you can email us with questions and suggestions at thefinalstrawradio@riseup.net or thefinalstrawradio@protonmail.com. If you'd like to use any episode for your project or radio show, feel free to do so. Just send us an email to let us know. If you care to, you can send us letters at TFSR, P.O. Box 6004, Asheville, North Carolina, 28816. Programming support is brought to you by Firestorm Books. Located at 1022 Haywood Road in West Asheville, Firestorm is a bookstore and social movement space owned by its workers, in operation since 2008. Their event calendar and complete catalog of books can be found online at firestorm.coop.